For today's episode, I'm working on the instrument panel. I'm going to start off by cutting test pieces out of black G10. These are parts I use just to kind of verify the fit, make sure my drawings are okay. Once I verified that's good, then I send the drawings out to have them cut from aluminum. I had Sen Cut Sen do these panel pieces in aluminum. After that, I paint the pieces, and I've also got some black anodized aluminum trim pieces or placard pieces that I am going to be laser etching in this episode with my laser. Here's what the panel will look like when it's complete. This is a rendering I did in SolidWorks. You can see it's got my three-piece design here. I mentioned that in a previous video. And I've got the black anodized placard pieces that I'm going to be laser etching. It's a pretty good panel. I'm going to be real happy with this, I believe. All right, I'm back over here in Clutter Corner. This is the side of the hangar that no one has seen or gets to see much because I don't come over here and do video. But I have some equipment over here. I've got my lathe over there. I've got sandblaster. I've got my CNC machine. This is where a lot of stuff happens. And what I just did was, well, I was going to start cutting my panels, test panels, just out of some G10 here. Came out here yesterday to do that, and my CNC controller computer died. Now, it was 15 years old, so it had a good run, and actually the computer was fine. I think it was just the power supply, but I'm like, why am I want to spend 60 bucks on an ATX power supply when I can just upgrade this thing? So I had an old NUC i7 laying around that I used to use for some other stuff, and just loaded it up, and I had to get an adapter USB to serial port because this machine is so old it communicates with a serial port. But I got all that done and fired it up, and it worked. So here's the center panel. Let me pop this out. There we go. Shake off some of the dust. So here's the center panel. Let's actually go take a look here. I'll show you where this is gonna go. So basically, that's the panel that's gonna go there. I'll have to move that cleco there, and I'll set it in place. I'll do that now. There we go. Everything fits. What I like to do before I do any real panel cutting is cut test panels, and just to make sure that the things are drawn right, fitting right, that my drawing is scaled appropriately. Now, I just pulled the CAD file from RANS, and it does appear to fit. It might be off by about 20 thousandths. The holes were just a little off, but that could be my machine. I need to go through and check my machine. It is pretty old, and it could be having a little bit of backlash, which I can adjust with software to a certain extent. So I might tweak that, but I could leave it as it is, and it would actually cut this fine. So here we go. I cut these. Now my test panels, really you want to cut these from a cheaper material than G10, but I have gobs of this left over from robotic stuff, and I'm just going to use it. Normally you might want to use, I don't know, like a 16th inch ABS plastic would be nice and cheap. But whatever, I've got it, I'm going to use it. So now that I got my machine running, I got this cut, I'm going to cut this here, the left side panel and the right side panel, and get everything fit in. I'll of course have to remove these, but this is going to let me verify the fit. All right, here is the co-pilot side panel, and it should just pop right out. On this one, I put tabs in to hold these small pieces in. Sometimes I'll do that because you can see I didn't tape the whole thing. I use double-sided sticky tape. I also use spray glue. It just depends on what I'm doing and what my mood is for the day. I don't like cleaning up glue, so sometimes the sticky tape is a better way to go. But you don't get full hold down with the sticky tape, so the tabs just kind of help keep it in place, and you just break them out. And then if this was a finished panel, I would clean up those holes with a little file or Dremel. But there we go. Beautiful. All right, we're starting to look like something here. Check that out. Now I need to cut this one. I'm gonna pull this skin off temporarily, and that way it'll let me get in here and remove these cables, control cables, cabin heat and parking brake, so that I can, after I get this panel cut, I can get that put in place. This is a piece, well, here's what it was. This piece was part of this here that I removed. This is the included panel that RANS gives you. I wasn't using it, but due to the design I'm doing, I wanted to still use it as a frame for the outside edge to build up between the panel support, the formed panel support here, and the cage tab here. So best way to do that was just to knock out the middle. Just did that on a CNC router, and I kept 3/4 of an inch all the way around. I'm gonna rivet it to the panel, the formed panel support at a few locations. I'm not gonna use these holes here and do the grommet thing that RANS does. What I'm gonna do is use these rubber isolators. I use these in some other things that I work on, and they work really well. These are a 3mm stud, M3, and then an M3 female. And they're rubber isolators. They're about 8mm diameter and about 8mm thick. And what'll happen is I'll open these holes up, and these will drop in there, and they'll go all the way around. Plus there's a couple more I've got to pop in with some extra holes that I have. Since I'm doing a 3-piece panel, I've got a hole here and a hole here that I need to do. So I'll make sure I get all those in there, but then what'll end up happening is my panel ends up going on top of this and mounts to the rubber isolators, okay? And then all my avionics mount to my panel. So it's a little bit of a different arrangement than what the factory gives you, but this is what I've settled on. I think it's gonna work out real nice. I've got it all drilled out and riveted to it. I used some 1/8" rivets down here, some 3/32 all the way around. I did 1/8 because I added a aluminum angle here for extra rigidity at the bottom, keep it from bowing. So what I need to do now is press in the panel nuts that I'm going to use to hold my panel pieces on. Well, again, via these isolators. I want to thread these in to panel nuts. I've already got one pressed in here. So that'll go like that, and then you can see maybe the panel nut. And all those are, I've showed these before in a tail cone episode. They're just in this case it's a 3mm. It's got a knurled or a little toothed edge there. You drill a 4.5mm pilot hole, and then those press in, and I'm just using a screw and a washer from the front side to press them in. So I'm going to go through and add them at all these locations where my panel attaches and get all those in place. Well, the DHL truck showed up and I got my machined parts back. These turned out really good. So I kind of went, I don't know if you call it overboard. I just really paid, I guess, a lot of extra attention to detail in engineering this panel. And what I came up with is these stiffeners that will join the center panel to the outside panels. And I wanted them all as one machined embodiment. And that way I can, and each side attaches to this, and I can take off either side independently. If I want to do any maintenance, I can just take the center stack out, reach in, do any work I want to do, or I can take the left side out, right side out, whatever. And the only way to really make that work was with a custom machined piece here. So I drew this up in SolidWorks, and I sent this off to Xometry, and they made it up for me in about a week and a half. And then I also made some stiffeners out here. I know the Dynon screen itself helps to stiffen the panel, but I just didn't want to count on that. So I made these stiffeners here, and they go like there. So now what I can do is start fitting all this assembly into the aircraft and start putting my avionics components in. But I think first step I'm going to do is this is actually the back side of the panel, so it's more like this when you're sitting in the cockpit looking at it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paint these panels um, same gray that I'm using for the interior. And then all of my little trim panel pieces are going to be either black anodized aluminum with laser etching for the markings, or I might do a carbon fiber with a laser etch and paint for marking. So first step, I want to paint these panels and get them ready, and then I can start putting things together. But these turned out great. Well, I'm going to start working on laser etching my panel placards. This was all cut from 16th inch, 062, 6061. Then I had some of my braces and brackets milled, also from 6061. And I have these, I don't know, I'll call them placards or trim panels. They fit over there, over the panel, and then this is where the laser markings are going to go, like so. And then the same goes for, I have one that goes here, and then the center stack gets these little trim panels here, which I've kind of got scattered about right now. But what I do is, and this is my laser, this is an Ortour, I think it's called the Laser Master Pro 2. I've had it for a couple of years, and I use it primarily for marking on anodized aluminum. It does really well on that. And what I do first is I do all my artwork, I bring it into the software, and I cut it on a paper template first. And I use that just to verify that all the sizing is correct. I get a chance to see where the markings are going to go on the part and get a good feel for it. Once I like how that goes, then I put this piece of masonite down. This is just 1/8 inch masonite type material. I put that down on the table of the laser, and I tuck it up against in the fence. I've got an X and Y fence in here that I can tuck the piece in there so it locks in place. And then I go ahead and run a pass. And what I end up with, I'll take this off and show you. I end up with the outline of the part and all the etchings. And then I can take this and place it on there exactly where it needs to go. So I use that first etching as a template, I guess, or to register the part. Then I place the part on there. I need to make sure I set my focus higher because of the thickness of the material, which I've already done here. So the next step is to go ahead and just run it on the anodized part. Before I do that, I'm going to set my camera down here, and I'm going to just really verify that I got my registration correct and it's perfectly aligned. And then I'll come back and we'll run this part. Okay, here we are in the software. I'm using Lightburn, which is pretty common software for these laser cutters and laser etchers. Got my artwork set in here. Now to get this artwork, I just took my CAD files and I brought them into Illustrator, and then I did all of my fonts and other markings exactly the way I wanted them. Outlined all of the text and then saved that as a PDF. And then I bring the PDF into Lightburn, and it's all to scale. Of course, doing the pre-etch on the masonite is what allows me to verify that the scale and everything is proper. And at this point, I'll go ahead and turn off my outlines. I'm not going to care about doing any of the outlines. I really just am going to do the etching of the text and the markings here. And for that, I'll set this to a fill. We're going to go 1650 on the speed at 100%. And I want to make sure that I home the device. It's already homed, but we'll just verify. Okay. And all we do now is hit start and let her rip. This is, it's a little precarious because I have 2 of these parts. I ordered from the machinist 2 of each, just in case I screwed one up. I don't anticipate a screw up, but still it's a little scary. So I've got it all registered exactly how I like. I've got my settings how I want on the markings. And at this point, all that's left to do is hit start and let her rip. And it's just going to go back and forth and draw line by line. it goes in a 0.075 millimeter increment on the lines. And that's smaller really than the eye can perceive, at least for this purpose. So you don't really see the lines. It ends up as just a nice solid shading of text. And you can see we're slowly starting to reveal what the text is going to be. This one is my, first it's printing out the parking brake. So you'll see brake starting to appear on the left. And then the two off text there, which is underneath the ignition switches. It's going to work its way from the bottom up and mark all of those. And there's my part. Look at that. It's gonna go here, roughly like so. And of course all my switches, buttons, switch guards, everything will mount all through there. So next will be, I'll work on this placard. My registration number and number will be here. This is battery fault and fuel low level lights. And I've got some bunch of other parts. This is the right side panel. This gets this goes here. This is the Garmin, the powered USB-A and USB-C ports. This is the ELT activation, reset, test button. And this is for a USB, two USB ports that'll go to the displays for updating firmware and such. So, and then of course, as I mentioned before, just some breaker and switch panels there. But there we go. Saved myself some money doing it myself. I did have to, of course, pay for the cutting and the anodizing, but it's relatively affordable. It actually would have been about twice as much. Even though I bought 2 sets of these parts, it still would have cost me twice as much to send this job out and have it completed, 100% and me not do anything. But I like to do stuff, and I've got the equipment here to mostly do what I need to do myself. So, and what's nice about this is at a later date, I might find that I need to change this up a little bit. I just cut a new part and relaser it myself. And I actually have the capability here to cut these myself. I just prefer not to cut aluminum. If this was carbon fiber or G10, my CNC router would cut this all day long. Aluminum, it's not its forte, so I do send that out, but I do have the ability to do all this in-house, even the anodizing. I've been getting into doing DIY anodizing, and in theory, I could have done this all myself, but anyhow, I just thought I'd show how I was doing the laser etching on the panel. I'll go ahead and get these done, and then I'll show you what it's like when all the pieces are finished. Here I'm etching on the masonite here, the template for the next piece that I'm going to be doing, which is my N number registration piece, the ident button, and then my fuel and battery lights. If we come over here, let me grab this. This is the piece that it's going to go on. And what I'll do once that's done is I'll then set this piece down. You can see that all turned out good. Set that on there and get that etched up. It's time to send it. For my ELT switch here, it comes with a decal that you can stick on. They've got a horizontal orientation and a vertical. In my case, I'm vertical. Rather than, I didn't want to put a sticker on there, so I'm etching all those markings on this panel. Basically just duplicated what they had here. And here's the extra panel. It'll go this way. It'll say for emergency use only here, and then arm off test, and then the test instructions. That way it's all nice and clean etched on the panel itself. No stickers. These tend to start peeling off over time and they fade and whatnot. So I got that going right now. Should look pretty good when it's done. Turned out nice. It's so impressive how clean and crisp this text can be with this laser. That's some pretty small text. That's maybe 3/32 tall on the push to, or the to test text there. And I mean, this laser could go, it could go a third of that size and still be quite legible. Maybe with glasses if your eyes are getting older. But there we go. This is done now. So now I can start mounting up the components. I think this is the last panel. I'm gonna go ahead and assemble the panel now. I did have to rivet some of the mini nut plates in here on the back side of my machined brackets here. And I already did these here. That holds on these supports. And now I'll go ahead and get everything put together and all assembled as one panel. Let's see what it looks like. Got everything mounted up in the airframe, and it looks fantastic. Actually sat up in here and kind of got a feel for how things were lining up for my eyesight, and everything is just real easy to see. Everything nice and accessible. I am just really happy with how this turned out. This is my first time doing a full touchscreen EFA system. I have the little Dynon D10 in my Cessna, which is nice. Little mini EFIS for attitude, indicator, airspeed. It's got compass. It's got all that. It's got all kind of the same information, but it's kind of old school. This is my first airplane that I'll have a full digital panel. Super stoked about it.